Hey everybody, how's it going? So I suspect this will probably be the last episode I do about Graham Hancock and the Ancient Apocalypse show. Probably for now anyway, who knows? I mean, maybe I'll come back with something else. But just responding to some of the people who have made comments, I appreciate everybody that's taken the time to look at my videos about Graham Hancock and Ancient Apocalypse, commenting either positively or negatively. You get a little bit of both, and that's fine. I don't usually respond to comments on YouTube, and so it's just it's a lesson I picked up from those who are well versed in the podcasting and YouTube world. But I wanted to do this episode talking a little bit about why it is I think academics won't debate Graham, Randall Carlson, and others, particularly archaeologists. And I think the reason is it comes down to a few different things. So first of all, actually, some academics have debated Graham and Randall Carlson. So there was an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience about, I'm going to say about 4 or 5 years ago, where Michael Shermer, who, he's not an archaeologist, but he's got a hard science background and he's a skeptic, but also Dr. DeFant, who I believe is a geologist, came on to debate Graham and Randall a little bit, sort of in between Graham's book Magicians of the Gods and America Before. And the result was they didn't come off so great. And there's a reason why that is. And Graham actually had also debated or was in line to debate. It was a big kerfuffle that actually made the internet back in, it was a while ago. I'm thinking it was close to 10 years ago at least, when Graham was going to debate Zahi Hawas, who used to be the former Minister of Antiquities for the Egyptian government, but also is an Egyptologist. And he's still actually active. I just saw him in the news this last couple of weeks, talking about Cleopatra's tomb. In any event, in that particular case, mainstream academia did not come off well at all. If you've ever had a chance to look at the debate, Graham actually posted today. It's part of the reason why I decided to do this video. Graham posted today a copy of that, and it's embarrassing. Zahi just melts down with rage and emotion, and he loses all perspective. And when Graham confronts him about simple pieces of, architecture, although not Egyptian, it is definitely within the neighborhood, Zahi isn't able to converse, and he isn't aware of some of it, and he doesn't know anything about it. And I think actually, although Joe and Randall and Graham talked about why academics won't debate Graham and Randall on Joe's podcast or are not likely to do it on any others, it kind of goes back. The reason is, it makes it sound like, it's because Randall said that, the response he's gotten, it'll lower, they'll feel that they're lowering themselves to debating some sort of woo-woo conspiracy theorist. The reality is I think, the answer is that something that I said in a previous video. Academics, the further you go in academics, the more and more you learn about less and less. So if you're going on to a PhD in archaeology, you start at an undergraduate degree and you do a bunch of, very basic courses in archaeology, and you get into the seminars and you get into some summer fieldwork. Then you get into grad school, either the master's or the doctoral level, and you're now actually doing a lot more research. But the focus of what you're dealing with is narrowing. And so when you get to a doctoral level, your doctoral dissertation is usually about one area of archaeology, and it's like one particular topic within that sub area of archaeology. It can get very minute. And the problem is that you would have to have basically a panel of archaeologists dealing with Mesoamerica, dealing with Egyptology, dealing with Gobekli Tepe, dealing with South America, dealing with Central America, dealing with, Indonesia, those areas. You'd have to have basically a panel of archaeologists and academics, because what would happen is while an academic may be very well versed in one particular area of archaeology, Graham will say, okay, but you're making this case, but look at this case here, this case here, this case here, the similarities between them, they look to have a tie back. And the response of the academic, 99 times out of 100 is going to be, well, I don't know about this place, this place, this place. I know about this place. I'm an expert in this place. And Graham pulls on so many threads, and he draws from so many areas of the world and so many sources. And it's not just archaeology. He gets into mythology. He gets into anthropology. He gets into geology. He gets into paleontology. Starting to talk about all these different elements. And so one academic or two academic or three academics probably aren't going to be able to answer a lot of his questions and really engage in a fruitful way. And I think academics know that. And that's why they don't, come together. I mean, academics get together to do anything can be really tricky sometimes. But I think that is a primary reason. I don't actually think it's as sinister as it comes off. And maybe I'm in a minority on that. But I actually believe it's because they know that they're going to look bad, because Graham's going to say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And they won't know anything about it, or they'll know very little about it. And that's what happened to Zahi Hawas. He got completely floored by Graham. Graham mopped the floor with him in a debate because he didn't know anything about Gobekli Tepe, even though it's like literally in his backyard. Because the argument was that, about the Sphinx, and Zahi knows a lot about that area of the world. Graham was saying, well, for the longest time, people were saying that the Sphinx couldn't be, 10,000 years old because there was nothing else in the world on that level that was 10,000 years old. Well, then there's Gobekli Tepe that pops out of the ground about 20 years ago, and it's an example refuting that argument. But Zahi didn't know about Gobekli Tepe, and so he's like, And so you can't have a debate, not a fair debate in that environment, because they don't know. So I think if it's going to happen, you're going to have to pull on some people with some very broad knowledge and very broad background, almost like the anti-Graham, or a couple of anti-Grahams. You'd need a couple of people who follow the mainstream, but also really get into the thread of following Graham's argument as it's chased around and know about the different sites that he's talking about. And I don't know that there is such a person. I don't know that such a person actually exists. Maybe there is. If there is, hey, Joe Rogan's looking for you. Graham is looking for you. Randall Carlson's looking for you. And you could have a 5-6 hour debate and have a good time and order some pizza and beer and whatever and just enjoy the debate and conversation. Maybe you'd mop the floor with Graham. Maybe Graham would mop the floor with you. Who knows? But the point is that it calls for a very specialized set of skills, and not a lot of academics have the depth, at least the breadth, with the degree of depth that Graham has about a variety of different sites. But I mean, what Randall says is also true. I mean, we're seeing this in terms of the dismissal of Graham in terms of academics. The one academic from UK, I can't remember his name, from Kansas, he was in the Slate article. He's basically dismissing Graham's whole argument as being A, a drug-filled haze, and B, that Graham is, somehow, channeling the, Madame Blavatsky, what was the name of that group in the 19th century, the Theosophical Society. Graham has nothing to do with that. He has nothing to do with any of that. In fact, Graham was into this ancient civilization stuff long before he ever got into spirituality. He talks about it. He talks about that on Rogan and other podcasts. He had zero interest in spirituality or anything like that until he wrote the book Supernatural in the early 2000s, 2003, 2004. But when you have this type of an argument, trying to dismiss Graham on, something that has absolutely nothing to do with what he's saying and getting traction, that people aren't going to be seriously debating him anyway, even if they have the knowledge. But that's why. I think there's a couple of reasons why academics won't debate Graham, and I think those are them.